Excellent. We got them all.
I'm going to go live in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so it's 34, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Do I need
Excellent. Thank you,
to
Carolyn.
tap the table.
There you go. That gavel feels good, doesn't it? Pretend gavel. Well, thank you, Carolyn. And we are going to start tonight's meeting with the honor of swearing in 3 returning board members, and that is Ted Donnelly, Jennifer Izant Gonzalez, and Amanda Jackson Miller. So if I can have Ted and Jen and Amanda, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Oh, Ted Donnelly.
Amanda Jackson Miller.
Jen Izant Gonzalez.
Do solemnly swear
Do
Do solemnly swear
that I will defend the Constitution
that I will
that I will defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution
of
of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution
of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this
Take
obligation
freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you very much.
Wow, was that the unabridged version? Wow. Well, here we go.
Thanks for Ted always providing a little spice to things.
There we go. Yeah, the whole family's back there now. Okay, so
And thank you all for serving again and serving your community in this capacity.
and then so I could take over now. All right, thanks, Scotty, for beaming us back into the meeting here. As you can see,
Like
I
your
took
theme.
Captain Kirk's chair.
Space, the final frontier.
So tonight, we have our pledge leader for tonight, and we have a student from Soquel. And do we have Ms. Murphy here?
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
here.
there you are, right there in the center. Would you like to introduce her?
Yes, I so would. Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Kristen Murphy. I'm the principal at Soquel Elementary, and I'm very proud to introduce the flag salute leader tonight, Miss Grace French, and her teacher, Ann Cardoza, is here with me as well. All right, Grace, take it away.
Can I read it right now, Miss Cardoza? Miss Murphy,
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you. You're good.
please stand for the flag salute. Raise your right. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for
for which it stands,
one nation
nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, Grace. We're so excited for you guys to meet Grace this evening. She's just such a wonderful kiddo, and I'll let you read the certificate saying some of the wonderful things we have to say about her.
Grace, I love your background. The flag, and then you have the world behind you too.
Pretty much my bedroom. I have a
Yeah,
master bedroom.
that's wow, that's a pretty cool wall you got back there. I like that. So Grace, I have this wonderful, wonderful certificate to read, and it's awesome words about you. So I'm going to read this right now, okay?
Okay.
Grace is a third grader here at Soquel Elementary School. Grace is the type of student every teacher dreams of teaching. Grace has a tremendous amount of natural grit. She pushes herself each day and always gives 100%. When Grace sets out to tackle a task, she never gives up. She approaches challenges with a growth mindset and is able to push on even when the work is hard. I like that. Because of this inner strength, Grace is doing an excellent job in distance learning. She even passed her recent reading test, allowing her to go up a level. We have no doubt Grace is destined for greatness. Grit is something that is internal and a tough skill to teach. This natural desire to push herself is a huge strength and something that will lead to Grace's success today, tomorrow, and beyond. Grace, we are proud to call you a Soquel Cougar. Congratulations, Grace. That's really some awesome words there. I like that. Here. There we go. So Grace, we like to ask our students some questions, if that's okay. And in here, it mentioned that you you read and you moved up a level. Do you like reading?
Yes.
Okay. What books do you like?
I like reading Christmas books.
Perfect. That sounds like a lot of fun. And I got to ask you one more question with that world map behind you. Are there spots on there that someday you would like to go to?
No, there's some spots that I've been to.
Oh, that's even better. Out of the country?
Yes.
Wow. Name one spot.
I've been to South Africa.
No way, really? Wow. That's further than I've ever gone. Did you like it there?
Yes.
Perfect. Wow, that is awesome. I am sure some of the other board members would like to ask a few questions. I don't want to hog it all. I could talk to you all night about that. Any other board members like to hop in and ask Grace a question or six?
Thanks for coming, Grace.
Hi.
Okay. Okay, then, since it's...
I'll ask a question.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
You know. Hi, Grace. Thank you again for being with us. What are you enjoying doing with your free time now that we're all spending a little more time at home? Is there something new that you've learned to do, or just something you've really enjoyed doing that's a little different now?
I like playing with my friends, and I also like having dinner with my family more often.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
I agree. I like being around my family more often too. Thank you for being here. And I have a question. I love meeting fellow travelers. Do you like the airplane rides too? Because that's quite a long flight.
Yes, I used to live farther away from here.
Oh, wow. Exciting. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming, Grace.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Grace. I just got to mention, I have a dog that came from Goa, India. She's part Basenji. She was a street dog, a street puppy, and she made her way over and now lives in our house, and she is a lot of fun. So someday I'd love to go to Goa to see where my dog came from. So I'll put that on my map. All right, Grace, you know what? It was really awesome to meet you tonight. And stay awesome, okay?
Okay.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too.
Oh, we got to do a roll call now. Linda?
Hello. Trustee Rodriguez,
Here.
Trustee Jackson Miller,
Here.
Trustee Izon Gonzalez,
Here.
Trustee Friedman,
Present.
Trustee Donley.
Present. Great, we're all here. No Buellers. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as it stands?
I'll make the motion. Carolyn.
Carolyn first,
Jen, I'll second.
Jen seconds. Okay. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as it stands?
Amanda, I'll make the motion.
Where are you? There you are. Okay, Amanda
Carolyn, I'll second.
and Carolyn. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Okay.
There's a resolution, I believe, there. So
You're absolutely right. So let's do a roll call then.
okay. So by roll call, Trustee Rodriguez,
Aye.
Trustee Jackson Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Izon Gonzalez,
Aye.
Trustee Friedman,
Aye.
Trustee Donley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to one of the best parts of the meeting is our recognition, and I'm going to turn that over to Scott.
Yeah, so it's very exciting to recognize our New Brighton Middle School student government officers, and that group is led by the very capable hands of Assistant Principal Christina Hadrius. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit about her group.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And students, thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. I gave them all the wrong time. So I told them it would be 6 o'clock. And so I just wanted to apologize right now for that. And I'm glad to see that you guys all patiently waited for the correct time, which was 6:30. So I just wanted to explain a little bit how we got to student council this year. Distance learning last year obviously threw us for a loop, and the student council program kind of just, to be honest, it stopped when we all left school and went to distance learning. So then this year we don't have a student council advisor teacher, and it was something that obviously I've been a part of for many years and something that I always felt very passionate about. New Brighton Middle School, I'm very proud that many of the leaders that come from New Brighton Middle School go on to be leaders at the high school level, at the college level, and future leaders in our community. So I'm very proud to be a part of this group, and I love to see our New Brighton Middle School leaders, shine up at the high school. Today, I got the privilege to see how some of our ex-student council members or leaders at the middle school were participating at the high school level, and they were making videos on the return to school. So I love to see that students are still a part of leadership. It's a really great thing, and I'm very proud of that. So tonight, I'm just so happy that we are still able to have our student council this year. It's been a slow process. We just had an election about a month ago, when normally we would have had an election in May. But these kids are ready to rock and roll and be a part of our leadership group and make our school a better place. So I don't know if Mr. Broadhurst, you wanted to add anything?
Yeah, yes, I did. Actually, excuse me. It's wonderful always to see our students. I was reminded of that again today when I got to meet all our cohorts on campus for the first time. And it's great to see these students here tonight. And as Ms. Hadrius said, they're future leaders. They're showing up right now at school, wanting to lead at New Brighton Middle School. I have no doubt they'll go on to high school, college, and be leaders in their community. And maybe some future board members are sitting here right now as students. So thank you, students, for wanting to lead and to put the effort in. And I also want to recognize Miss Hadrius for leading this group, because She was student council advisor for many years as a teacher, and has continued to want to nurture the leadership in our young students. So kudos to Miss Hadris, and thank you for all you're doing, Miss Hadris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm not sure what the next steps are. So Scott, I'm gonna let you take it over from here.
Would you like to read their names?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I have their names, and so I'll just introduce them. Does that work? Okay, great. So let me start with, I'm going to go with, this is in no particular order. This is just the order of certificates that Ms. Jacobs emailed to us. So we have as our student body 8th grade representative, Gabriela Gonzalez. We have our an 8th grade student who is our historian, Emma Oldham. Hi, Emma. Do I see this? Okay, yeah. Hi, Emma. And next I have our secretary, Jack Smith. Where's Jack? Hi, Jack. And we have next up, I've got our student body vice president, Ariana Tonelli. And we have our student body president, Camara Montanez. There's Cami. Hi, Cami. Thank you. And up, oh, we have our student body treasurer, Mark Montanez. And our 6th grade representative is Olivia Potes. There's Olivia. Thank you. And finally, our 7th grade representative is Nico Marinovich. Hi, Nico. Very proud of these kids.
Thank you, Ms. Hadris, and thank you, students, for serving in this capacity. And wanted to see if any of the board members had any questions for our student government representatives.
Well, I'm going to have everybody in my room right now are clapping for the kids. You guys are great. Thanks for doing all this. Hey, I got a meeting. Okay, thank you. Kind of like Brian Wilson. Phil's the only one. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, did President Donnelly or any of the other board members have any questions for our student government representatives here tonight?
So has anybody held office before, and is it really different now?
So, okay, so kids, students, you can unmute yourselves now. So it would be easier if you just unmute yourself to answer the questions, if anyone wants it. Yeah, just jump right on in. And if you haven't, maybe just share a little bit about why you would want to be an officer, or if it's different.
I guess I'll say something. I haven't held office before, so I thought I would try it out this year, and I was gonna try it out last year. And I saw my friends doing it last year, and then I can tell it's probably really different, but I'm kind of glad I got started doing it this year because I don't think there'll ever be a year like this again. So we have the one in a lifetime opportunity of knowing what it's like in 2020 compared to every other year.
Interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, my story is just pretty much the same. I never held office before, but yeah, it was just it, and I kind of wanted to do it last year, but I never really got it together. But now this year, I just kind of said, yeah, let's do it. And so that's why I'm here. And I'm looking forward to a year of student council.
Thank you.
It's kind of the same thing for me. I never run for a position before. In my last school, you were only allowed to run for a position when you were in 6th grade or when you were in 5th grade, and then you got elected the next year of 6th grade. It was kind of a weird system, but and I really wanted to run in 6th grade, and so but then COVID happened, and I never got to do that, and then I moved schools. And so I was like, hey, why not try it at the new school? And so, yeah.
Well, I'm just so appreciative of all of you stepping up. You know, it's so easy to stay in the background and to not take action. So you're to be applauded for stepping up and giving leadership a try. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, who is the historian?
That would be me.
Okay, so what does the historian do?
As far as I am aware, is keeping documents of special events like dances and school carnivals and things like that, and like a file, and I believe sharing them with the yearbook so they can be in the yearbook.
Okay. Now, do you share everything that you did this year with the historian for next year? So you just keep sharing documents?
I do not know yet, but I will ask Ms. Hadrius next time we meet as a student council.
Okay, thank you.
Don't forget to save at least one mask.
I will.
Exactly.
Trustee Donnelly, I wanted to just mention that I'll be mailing all the certificates to our government leaders tomorrow.
Perfect, great. Okay, look for something in the mail. All right, thank you very much. If there's no more questions or comments from the board, I guess we'll just we'll move on. Scott, okay?
Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you, student representatives.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for popping in virtually too, and thank you for serving. And it's like you said, it's quite interesting to do this virtually. You don't have to drive very far, do you? Or ride your bike or walk. Anyways, but thank you again. And as we move on, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Sorry. Somebody else have something to say? No. Okay. Thank you again for the recognition. We're going to move on to public comments. Are there any public comments out there that are not on the agenda?
I do not have any by text.
Okay.
Nothing on email. None on Zoom.
May I just interrupt briefly, Mr.
Yes,
Donnelly,
please.
to let our students know that it's okay for you students to log off now. You don't need to stay for the full duration of the meeting, but of course you can if you want to, but you may log off. And then thanks to the board for recognizing our student council. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Craig. Okay, so no public comment. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 5, organizational meeting. This is where we get to nominate the window and light monitor and the lunch monitor. So Scott, why don't you take it away?
Yes, thank you for that great introduction, Ted. President Donnelly, I want to say thank you for serving in the capacity of board president for the last year. You've done a phenomenal job. I personally really appreciate how serious you take the position and the role, yet always bring a lighthearted touch to making the meetings fun and enjoyable.
Thank you.
And so tonight, as our annual meeting dictates, we will have an election of a new president. Of course, the new president could repeat as the previous president should the board vote in that direction. And so at this point, we will see if there is anybody who wants to put a nomination on the table for board president for 2021.
I would like to nominate Ted Donnelly to serve as a president for one more year.
Excellent. Is there anybody that would like to second that nomination?
I'll second.
Okay.
Jen.
Before we go on to a vote, were there any other nominations a board member would like to make?
Well, that's our nomination for board president.
Yes.
Yeah, is there anybody who would like to step in as board president? If not, I'm happy to go another year. Like I wasn't going to leave my seat anyways, but so anyways, if there's anybody who would like to step in, please do. If not, I will be happy to go another year.
Thank you, Ted.
Ooh, I shouldn't have said it. No, just kidding. Okay, so
I did
then
not hear any other nominations. We had a first and a second to put Ted Donnelly as the nominee for president, and we will call for a vote. All in favor of Ted Donnelly serving as board president for 2021, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Any opposed? All right,
good.
Ted, congratulations on being elected board president once again, and thank you for serving in this capacity.
Thank you. Thank you for trusting me, especially during this time too. It's been quite an interesting time. All I could say. All right, so do I take it over from here?
You can take it and run with it now.
Or
you
you
have
want
all your
okay.
powers at your disposal.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, let's move on to nominate our vice president for 2021. Is there a nomination on the floor? If not, I would be happy to have Carolyn do it for another year. I mean, if we want to keep it going as the same. And I mean, she's done a great job.
Second.
Okay. I nominated for a second. Carolyn, do you accept?
I do accept.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay. I guess I should take a vote. All in favor?
Can I just ask if anyone else would like to serve as vice president, just in case someone would like the opportunity?
Right. I should throw that out there too.
That's the most silence I've ever heard.
We all muted real quick, but I wanted to put it out there.
You know what? Thank you very much. I mean, it's just don't be shy, step in. It's just that this time, I mean, we're in a whole different era, whole different time right now, whole new time too. And I know everybody is super busy with kids. I don't have kids at home. I know everybody's busy right now. However, I mean, it's kind of not the norm of doing it, but if somebody really, really likes to step in, you know, please say so. Of course, because of the Brown Act, we can't go shoulder tapping people before the meeting. So, you know, just don't be shy and please, you know, say, I'd like to do it. And everybody just muted.
Can I just say, to speak to what you just mentioned, that in these times that I just can't believe how fast this year has gone. I feel like you know, having some solid consistency and keeping the momentum going. I'm just so grateful that both of you are excited and, you know, to continue this. And I'm just really grateful to be a part of this team. And I think that now more than ever, having some great consistency and to continue the solid work that's happening is really great. So I'm ready to vote.
Yeah, I can't help myself but chime in. I totally agree. And I think it, you know, it provides for a nice, even consistency for all involved and for staff. And you guys have done an amazing job this year, especially as we've transitioned through our various types of virtual meetings. So really appreciate the willingness to keep the great leadership. I just wanted to open it up just in case someone else wanted the opportunity.
No, please, I'm glad you did, because I meant to do that myself.
No, totally appreciate it. Thank you. Ready to vote.
All right. So all in favor for Carolyn Friedman to be our vice president?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Carolyn. Yeah, thank you.
Happy to do it.
Is there next? I should really ask if there's any public comment out there on these items right here so far.
Nothing on text.
Okay.
Nothing on email.
I had someone just enter the waiting room, but I don't know what they want yet.
Okay, well, we're still doing our nominations right now, so if they need to chime in, I'll check again. Right now, we're gonna nominate our board secretary for 2021.
Yes, always the most exciting election in any year. Previously, the superintendent has served as the board secretary. I'm willing to do so if the board desires.
I nominate Scott.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Excuse me, I missed it. So who nominated Amanda and then?
Carolyn
and then-
seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any comments from the public regarding this?
Nothing from text.
Nothing from email. But it looks like we did just have someone join us.
Yeah, someone joined, but I haven't got a response from them yet.
Okay. Because the next one in order here is approval of the board committee appointments for 2021.
Yeah, so thank you, Ted. So this one is a traditional item that can be kind of taken in a routine manner. This year, we're trying to take a little bit extra in-depth look and make sure that the committees that board members are dedicating themselves to and dedicating their time to are commensurate with their time commitment, that the impact is commensurate with their time commitment. So I want to just kind of go through these and not just assume anything, and to see if there's some committee that we can either take off the list, and you'll see that there are some new ones on this list. So I'll just kind of go down through the list, and some are out of necessity in compliance, right?
Mhm.
So one of those is the Child Nutrition Advisory Committee. That is something we need for compliance purposes. The Capitola Soquel Chamber of Commerce is one that we have had on the list as to have a community connection. And so I don't know if there's any thoughts from any board members about that one.
Who is on there right now?
That is a good question.
I technically took over for Sierra when she left, and then I have had trouble figuring out, I think I've asked to be on their email list and trying to, I've tried to figure out when meetings are, because I do want to participate, and I just haven't figured that out or gotten
No problem.
to the list of meetings.
I guess in the discussion here, along with Scott, is that as far as the committees go, is just right now we should be on committees that we are required, or if it somehow will benefit the district, along with another committee too. So I mean, there are all these committees really necessary for us to be on? And do they benefit the district in some way? And Phil, did you have something? Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, I think these committees are, good for us to be part of. As far as the chamber goes, when I was doing it, all the contact information, newsletters, and all that stuff went to the member's address, which is probably the DO.
So yeah, so for that one, I think what I'm hearing is that we want to continue it, but we can definitely, Linda and I can definitely provide more support on that. And so we can make sure that we get the board members serving in that capacity connected with the Chamber of Commerce. And
well, we do pay a membership, correct? Do we pay a membership? Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Honestly, I am not sure about that.
Michelle's shaking her head yes.
Michelle over on this side of me just shook her head yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I'll do it. I mean, it wasn't obviously that big of a time commitment. So I mean, I'd be happy once I get the link and then when the meetings are the virtual ones.
Okay. Linda and I will work to get you that information and make sure you're connected. The next committee on the list is the design team, and this is the collaboration between the city of Capitola and our district. And I think Ted had some thoughts about perhaps redesigning the design team.
I did. I thought it was good with Phil and I and two other council members having breakfast, but it just, to me, I think it needs a little bit more substance. And no offense, Phil, I think we had some really good chats and good ideas, and you're great too. However, I think it should go on to a meeting with the board president, superintendent, mayor, and city manager. And we've checked with Capitola, and they're willing to meet with, it would be Scott and I, or an alternative to meet. We're not talking like every other week, maybe a month or every other month.
I did not get a chance yet to touch bases with the mayor and the city manager. My hunch is that they would be open to that.
I had an email back from the mayor.
Oh, you did?
And they're both willing. They just need to meet later in the afternoon, and that's the only criteria. I'm thinking if we go, do we need once a month? I mean, we should maybe leave it open-ended on how often we meet. But Phil, are you okay with that?
Yeah, well, we haven't been meeting since March anyhow, so.
I know. Yeah, I thought virtual, and then just things kind of went out the window. But now, well, we'll have to meet virtually anyways too. But I think maybe we could maybe get something going with the city manager, superintendent, mayor, and the president.
I think that's a great idea. And so I think what I'm hearing is that
Phil?
rather than two regular members from the board, it would be one member and an alternate.
Right.
Yeah.
And right. So, the vice president could be the alternate. Or Phil, would you like to be the alternate since you were on the I like the Breakfast Club.
Does it have to be, does it have to be a resident of Capitola?
No. You're representing the district, the school district. And that's another thing too, is that I like to extend this on to our new county supervisor, and hopefully would be able to meet with him regarding our schools, our elementary schools that are in his district. So it's just not, for New Brighton, but I think, it would be good to chat with him about some things as well too.
Okay, so for this design team, just to make sure Linda has the notes on this, instead of two members, it'll be one member and an alternate, and kind of predetermined to be the president as the member and the vice president as the alternate.
Is that okay with you, Carolyn and Phil? You're okay? All right.
Could we call it something else? I think we bring
this up
every year, but it doesn't.
I like the Breakfast Club.
It doesn't
maybe
really
we could call it
make sense. Just something that's
meeting of the minds or something. So I don't know. Actually, you know what? We should start an acronym committee. That's it. And just come up with. We got to come up with an acronym for this.
I'm trying really hard to come up with something that goes with like a 60s or 70s TV show, but it's not coming to me right away. But
it will tonight at midnight.
Yeah, but yeah, the design team just doesn't quite cut it.
I never liked that. I like my breakfast club, but
You guys,
Phil.
you guys should be the LBOP.
So
That's
why don't we
it,
just,
LBOP.
why don't we just call it the Joint Leadership Team or something?
Oh, God.
The JLT.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Actually, that's good, Phil.
Though. I like it.
Joint Chiefs.
Joint leadership team it is then. Did you get, all right.
And did
thank
we
you.
decide on the Child Nutrition Advisory Committee?
We haven't gotten there yet. We're going, it's not in order of the certificate. We're going in the order of the what do you call it, the staff report. So there's a certificate and there's staff report, and so staff report's not in the same order as the pretty border committee thing.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was going on the order on the memo. So we are down now to the California School Boards Association. The Santa Cruz County School Boards Association, I should say. That's an important addition. And we have traditionally had one official representation, although all members can attend the meetings, one official member. And I think I have not heard of any desire to change that. That seems to be working, unless a board member would like to chime in on that.
Amanda, you want to continue doing that?
You know, I'm happy doing it. If someone, I'll attend the meetings no matter what. So if someone else would rather be the voting member from our district, I'm happy to hand that over. But if not, I will regularly attend. So I'm certainly happy to carry on.
Well, then I think that works. Like Amanda said, anybody else wants to hop in? And then Carolyn, you still want to be the alternate?
Can do that unless someone else wants to be the alternate. If not, I'll happily stay on.
Okay. All right, so we'll keep that the same as well.
Next up is the Children's Network, which is a very worthy organization, although I think we want to have a discussion on whether the time commitment is something that is benefiting them and benefiting our district. And so I'd like to open it up for that.
I've been on that committee for 2 years, and I think, yes, it's a very worthwhile organization. I just don't know if, I know that we're the only district represented there, so I'm not sure historically how that happened and why we're the only district. And I feel like perhaps it's not the best use of our time, even though, I mean, it is a wonderful organization. And in terms of the presentations, it's interesting information as a community member, but in terms of my role as a trustee, I'm not sure that I've been able to take that information from the meetings and really have useful information for all of you. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, so basically, I think it came down to where there was other board members who were involved with it as well. And then it came onto our committee list. Phil.
So I'm to blame for all this. In my first run on the school board, I got onto this group.
Oh, okay.
There were no other school boards, and I don't even think the COE was on it. I don't know if they still are now. Then I left the board, but I stayed on this committee. And then when I came back, Sandy took over.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's the history of it. Okay.
And I think the value is, of course, there's information, but there's the context in the community that you meet and learn about.
I've attended the meetings too, if I can just throw my 2 cents in. And I tend to agree with Carolyn, as the information is very worthwhile, and that's why it's somewhat awkward to kind of think about not having a representative. But what I found is that a lot of the information was duplicate from what we get from other sources, and perhaps that's a compliment to our County Office of Education and their Student Services Department, who are very good at making sure that any connections to agencies that can serve our families, we have opportunity to embrace those connections. So so it's not that the information is not good, it's just that it's available in so many other formats. I think is the way I see it.
So in other words, are we saying that we're going to strike that from the committee list?
I think that.
And I mean, any board member who
that should
wants
be a
to attend
consideration.
it is more than welcome to attend it, but not as a required committee, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay.
And I'll
So we're
summarize
striking the
all of these.
So with that, as we move on and do the motion, just note that the Children's Network is not a required committee.
Yeah, and I'll ask Linda to help me at the very end of this summarize everything, including that, so you can take action on it. The next one is CSBA Delegate Assembly, and I think that one is the proverbial no-brainer to keep, unless any board member has something to say about that.
I think you're doing a great job, so I think we keep you on there, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, I'm up for election again. I don't want to even go into what happened to me this year, but here I am.
Roller coaster. All right.
Sounds quite interesting. A little interesting group there.
Thank you, Phil, by the way.
Thank you.
The next two are relatively new in this past year. And so some items that we added based out of need, and a lot of it based out of the need around COVID-19 and our district's response to it, but not just that. One was the Racial Justice Task Force. The next one was the Dual Immersion Leadership Team. And then finally, the Fiscal Prioritization Team. And these are all district-wide committees represented from all parts of our school community. And it's been very valuable, in my humble opinion, to have board members directly engaged in that work. Because, for lack of a better way to say it, it cuts out the middleman. And there can be one or two board members on these teams, not only having input, but being able to hear the concerns and questions and updates from members themselves. So right now we have on the Racial Justice Task Force, Carolyn has one seat, and Jennifer and Amanda have been sharing another seat. So that way we always have no more than two in any of those meetings, Brown Act compliant. On the Dual Immersion Leadership Team, Carolyn has stepped up to our first meeting and been a part of that. And we appreciate having her there. And then on the Fiscal Prioritization Team, Phil, although that team hasn't met since back when we were really dealing with the potential serious cuts, Phil and Jen have served us there. And that we do plan to bring that team back together at some point when we're having to look at some future financial decisions. So those are three teams that we implemented this year. I think they're very valuable to the district, but of course like to open it up to see if those teams should remain on the list. And then of course, if those same members want to continue in that capacity. So we'll start with the Racial Justice Task Force. Everybody okay with that being on the list, first of all? And Carolyn and half of Jen and half of Amanda.
Yeah.
Looking to.
Yes, happy to keep serving on that committee.
Same.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. And Carolyn, a lot of Carolyns on this list. So thank you, Carolyn, for stepping up in so many capacities. Being somebody who is multilingual, as your input on that Dual Immersion Leadership Team is really valuable. And are you interested in continuing in that capacity?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for that. And finally, our members that like to keep a keen eye on the budget. We know that Phil likes to do that. So Phil and Jen, wondering if you want to continue in that capacity.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, Linda, I may ask you to help me out with this overall action item. So the summary to take action on for our committees this year. I'll start with the nature of the teams first and any changes. One is to change the design team name to the Joint Leadership Team, and that rather than two members, there'll be a member and an alternate, and the member and alternate are predetermined as the president as the member and the vice president as the alternate. we're going to strike Children's Network from this list of required ongoing committees, but with the notation that we all think it's a very worthy organization. And those are the changes to the nature of our board committee representations in terms of the teams. And then in terms of the members serving for the Child Nutrition Advisory Committee, which is a compliance team, something that we have to have in place. I believe we said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Carolyn is willing to continue in this capacity with Ted as the alternate. For the Chamber of Commerce, Jennifer Izant Gonzalez is willing to continue in this capacity with the notation that we need to make sure that we do our part in getting her connected into those meetings. Superintendent will serve as the alternate. The joint leadership team is already predetermined as the member with President Donnelly and the alternate is Vice President Friedman. Santa Cruz County School Boards Association, the member will continue to be Amanda with Carolyn as the alternate. CSBA Delegate Assembly, Phil will be continuing to represent us there should the board approve this full action. The Racial Justice Task Force will continue to be served in one seat by Carolyn and then a second seat split with Jennifer and Amanda. The Dual Immersion Leadership Team will continue to be represented by Carolyn. And finally, the Fiscal Prioritization Team will continue to be represented by Phil and Jennifer should the board approve this full item.
And nobody wants to add the acronym committee. We could call it ANOM, acronym naming oversight members. No takers? Okay. We'll
do that on the side.
There we go. Okay. All right. So all that Scott had mentioned, I think everybody has it clear. Is there any other comments or questions from the board? And if not, I'm going to open this up to the public.
Nothing from the public on text.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion to approve our board committee appointments for 2021?
I move.
Second.
I second. Carolyn.
Phil and Carolyn. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. All right, so approval of board meeting dates for 21-22 school year.
So the next item in getting the organizational meeting taken care of is to get all of our meeting dates for the 21-22 school year. And I think we have a good pattern of meetings that are working for us.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years ago, we added that July meeting, which I really appreciate from the board because I know some districts go dark in July. And what we have found is having that meeting in the summer so that we're not waiting, nearly 2 months between meetings really ensures that we're able to get all the district's business done. And so we would like to continue with that July meeting and then continue with our regular pattern of 2 meetings per month, first and third Wednesdays, except where some, annual vacations interject themselves and during those months, such as December and January, just having one board meeting.
Okay, everybody look at their calendars. I have St. Patrick's Day is okay. Any other concerns about dates of meeting?
Well, July 14th is Bastille Day.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm the only one that celebrates that, huh?
I think you had us all thinking there, Phil.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to say I just looked this up and noticed this. I honestly don't know whether we've taken this into account before, but September 15th, I believe, is Yom Kippur, which is an important Jewish holiday.
Mm-hmm.
That is not an evening that I would traditionally be at a board meeting, and I should have caught this earlier when I was looking at the board docket. So we can either adjust the meeting schedule, or I just may not attend that night.
That might actually, honestly, that would be prudent. I think because other boards and councils have done that, and not only it might affect other members coming to the meeting as well too. So I'm not sure if we, pardon me?
A second adjusting that.
Okay. And thanks for looking at that, because I just started thinking about that other holidays that we should be observing. So with that, September 15th, do we not have, like, that is a time of year we really should have a meeting, right, Scott? 2 meetings?
You know, with the meeting on September 1st and then a meeting early in October, I would venture to say that we would be just fine without having, because the options obviously are to schedule a meeting the following Wednesday, which would be the 22nd. And so, I mean, those are the 2 options basically, right? Unless another option somebody wants to put on the table, but either just not have a second board meeting in September or schedule a September 22nd board meeting.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if I can get first interim, if I can get an audit actuals completed for the board by September 1st, because traditionally I take an audit actuals to the second board meeting in September. If it's
what if we have it on, can we have it on the 8th then?
Oh, absolutely. That
Okay.
would mean 1 additional week. Yeah.
And 8th is okay for calendars. Phil.
So I'm okay with scratching the September 15th meeting, and then maybe instead of trying to put something in stone, that we call a special meeting if we have to deal with the audit, because who knows what'll happen. We're talking September of next year. That's like hundreds of years from now.
Are you okay with that, Michelle, if we have to call a meeting on another date if the first doesn't suffice any approvals, or if we have to move to, you know, a week or 2 weeks after September 1st? I mean, is it okay if we scratch it and then come back if we have to call a special meeting on another date?
I'm yes, absolutely. Yes.
I mean, if we have to, we will, and all we need is a quorum.
Why not just do the 8th though for September? If we're gonna if we're gonna try to have one meeting set in stone, for sure, why not have it just be the 8th?
I will do whatever the board would like. I will make it work.
Okay,
well,
so then my question
is
is that, should we have it the 8th or on the 27 plus 5, the 22nd?
I would be out of compliance for an audit actuals because it has to be on or before September 15th.
So then we should meet, then plan on meeting on the 8th then. Okay.
And is the proposal on the table, just to be clear, to just have one board meeting in September and to make that September 8th?
Having one, so combining the 1st and the 15th to the 8th.
I just wanted to clarify that. Otherwise, we're having back-to-back meetings.
Yeah, I like that.
You like the back-to-back meeting or one meeting in September? Okay.
And we can put a special, if the board takes action on that, I would ask Linda to just put an asterisk next to that date with a short explanation at the bottom.
So the 1st and the 15th are going to be combined to the 8th? Is that what we're saying? Or is it going to be the 1st for everything? And if Michelle has time to put everything together. So should we just have it on the 8th, then combine them?
8th.
Carolyn?
My vote is for the 8th.
Okay. Everybody okay? Then scratching the 1st and the 15th and having one meeting on September 8th? Okay. Okay. Are there any other dates that may come up as any concerns, not only for us, but the members of the public as well and staff? Okay. All looks good. Okay. All right. So then with that, is there a motion to approve the meeting dates for 21, 22, scratching September 1st, September 15th, and having one meeting on September 8th? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion with the change to the 8th of September.
Okay.
Jen, I'll second.
Okay, Carolyn, Jen, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Before I move on, do we have any members from the public that want to comment on items 5A through E that they weren't able to chime in on?
Nothing on text.
And nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay. Very good. Well, let's move on to our standard reports, and we'll start off. God, Michelle, how's that? You're right there.
I'll go.
I'm not sure how everybody else sees the screen, but you're right there.
You're down there to the left.
Am I? Okay.
Thank you again, board. I genuinely appreciate the change of the calendar date. That gives me a little cushion to try to get that report done on time. So much of what we've been working on kind of as a team, and they're on multiple agenda items later on in the agenda. So I think I'll keep my report short. This week we just have been buying and buying and buying, trying to meet our December 30th deadline and to coordinate the delivery schedules with everything that we have out in the hopper right now. So that's kind of what we've been centering around. And then just coordinating some end of the year stuff with payroll and our last check run of the year. Everybody seems to be wanting to take Christmas off, and I'm very thankful for that. I really encouraged my staff greatly to take the 2 weeks off if at all possible and unplug for a little bit. So that's my report this evening.
Thank you. Jessica, do we have Jessica on the line?
I'm here.
Okay.
So I'm so thankful that Michelle has a deadline for spending money, because in Ed Services we've been doing a lot of spending money, including the most recent acquisition of Paradeck, which is a virtual platform for our staff and students. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, it actually looks like a slideshow, but it allows the students and the staff the ability to assess student learning on a immediate basis. So it's really exciting that we're able to have those funds available for us to spend. We did a 2-year contract and a professional learning contract with them, so that's very exciting. We've also done a lot of work with our county lately with the Preferred Professional Learning Network, the Curriculum and Instruction Network, and the Arts Integration team, in addition to planning for our professional development and collaboration days in January. So our January 4th day and our January 5th through 15th transition to hybrid planning days are all planned in coordination with our Santa Cruz County Office of Education, and we're super excited about that. I had the pleasure of spending 3 days last week at one of our schools with the in-person small group teams, and I just have to give a really big shout out to our classified staff that are supervising those teams. And when looking at student screens, seeing what our teachers are doing, just amazing what they're able to do virtually. Our teachers, of course, have been busily completing assessments and report cards, which our families will be seeing shortly. We've been finalizing our hybrid schedules. We've been preparing for our summer school planning, actually, just kind of in a response to what we're seeing in terms of data. We are working on some data protocols with our site administrators, including some current data and root cause analysis processes to plan for future intervention and prevention plans. We're working with our beginning phases of the Santa Cruz Gardens teams to talk about the science-focused potential plans for that integration. At that school, we're looking at dual immersion, at other, schools as possibilities in our district. I'm working with the New Brighton Middle School administrators to look at next steps with regard to their school-wide AVID practices, including the emphasis on student agency and leadership. We're working with our really amazing Opal Cliff staff and our families. We've just recently done a parent survey to determine how they're feeling and thinking about how students are learning and how they're feeling about doing the teaching at home. We're obviously super excited to be working on different communication pathways in this time of COVID and not being able to see each other. And so our Ed Services virtual newsletter is beginning to be a more robust platform for information. And then, of course, we're just trying to fulfill our responsibilities as compliance officers in our district, and me in particular as the Title IX compliance officer. So just a lot going on right here, but very excited to see the transition in our school board and the transition actually being so similar, so that we have some comfort in what's happened this past year. And I just want to thank you all so much for being so supportive and willing to kind of lean in on us and believe in us as we just take these amazing steps forward courageously. And you're just such an amazing team. And as I listen to you tonight and how well you work and things together, I couldn't be prouder to be a part of this district.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Jessica. Scott.
I'd just like to say, well said, Jessica, on all of those items. Most of the things I will comment on are already embedded in other agenda items. So just two quick thoughts for me. One is that we had our first dual immersion leadership team meeting last week, and very excited to get that group off the ground. We have a really good team looking at it from all different perspectives. And I think that our consultant from the California Association of Bilingual Educators, Csba, Natalie is her name. I think she's going to be a good fit for us as we go down the road of first determining, is a dual immersion program right for our district? And if yes, how to best implement it so that it's sustainable and serves families for a long time. The second item I would like to mention is something that I'm very excited about. As you know, over the course of the summer, we had a relatively abrupt resignation from our principal at that time at Santa Cruz Gardens. And leadership in this time is more important than ever. And so filling that was in a quick manner. If we had the right person to fill it in a quick manner was very important. Fortunately, we did. We had an aspiring administrator waiting in the wings, and somebody that we had worked with in many capacities, and that was Carissa Lemos. And due to the nature and the quick appointment process that we went through, we started her off in an interim principal role, and so that we could give ourselves a little time to kind of feel things out and see if it was the right fit. And I'm glad to tell you that Michelle and Jessica and I talk regularly amongst each other and with Carissa, as she has climbed two huge mountains, you could say. One huge mountain, just being a new principal, period, is a huge mountain. Any principal will tell you that. And then, of course, the huge mountain to climb of leading in a pandemic. And Carissa has been very successful in both of those roles simultaneously. And for that reason, we are taking the step of removing the interim tag, and Carissa will be the principal of Santa Cruz Gardens moving forward. And just very proud to announce that, and very proud of the work Carissa has done.
That's great news. And congratulations to Carissa if she's out there.
And that's all for me. Thank you.
Sorry,
Jeff.
Scott. Are you done? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Do we have anyone from CSEA out here? I don't see anybody on any of the squares here. If I'm wrong, is there anybody out there, Scott?
No, I had seen Corey on before, but she was probably here because she had a couple of her own children on the governance.
Well, that's a good reason.
That's a great reason.
Okay, then let's move on to SEA, and I see Gordon's here. Hello.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, just want to echo what Scott said about Carissa. Definitely really applaud that as the person who had my position before I did. I definitely have a huge amount of respect for Carissa. So yeah, anyway, moving on. SEA met last Monday. Scott, Michelle, Jessica were kind enough to come and join us, answer some questions, engage in, I think, a really meaningful dialogue. As you'd imagine, returning to hybrid is kind of on the forefront of a lot of our discussions these days, and I think on a lot of people's minds. So with that in mind, one of the outcomes of our meeting on Monday was for me to send out a survey to SEA members about people's comfort, personal comfort returning under orange or red tiers, and also their support for returning under orange and red tiers, because we recognize those things are different to some people. And you know, I made sure to give the caveats here that, number one, we don't get to negotiate a timeline for return. It might not even be anything within district control, given pending legislation, et cetera. But I think it is insightful just to sort of see where SEA members are feeling about possibly returning and some of their concerns that they had. So is it okay with you guys if I just sort of present the results of that survey?
Fine. Yeah, I think it would be interesting.
Perfect. Yeah, and I sent this out, I emailed it to you guys, and I also emailed it out to SEA members as well. And if anybody doesn't have the link and would like it, and they could just email me and I'll send out the link as well. So yeah, I put kind of this disclaimer at the top of the survey, kind of already explained that part. So how comfortable would you be personally with returning to hybrid in the orange tier? This was kind of spread all across the board, right? And I think that makes sense. You know, the orange tier is significantly lower than we are now. And it's a real contrast between how comfortable would you be personally with returning to hybrid under a red tier. We have 58% of respondents said not at all comfortable, compared to about 13% that were somewhere in the middle, and 6.8% that have no reservations about returning in the red tier. So big difference, you know, in feelings between the orange tier or the red tier in terms of people's personal comfort in returning. And we see the same thing when we're looking at SEA members' support for returning. Turns out, you know, I wanted to keep those separate, but looking at the survey results, they're pretty similar looking. We've got a 59.5%, so just about 60% of SEA members strongly oppose returning to a hybrid instruction in the red tier, whereas only 9.5% strongly support returning under the red tier. And then for comfort level, again, it's all over the board for orange. You can imagine, you know, a number of factors for that. I also attached on here, just copied and pasted. I didn't make any edits or any omissions or anything. All of the concerns that people stated about returning to in-person teaching. And there's about 10 pages here of concerns and additional comments. So I don't, you know, I wish I had the time to read these all out. I think there's some really touching ones, some really insightful ones, but I also don't want to kind of editorialize and just pick and choose the ones that I feel like are important. So I've shared this with you all, and would just encourage you to sort of look through these and take them all as, you know, one person's thoughts and feelings about a return. And of course, you know, how somebody else feels about their thoughts and returns going to be different maybe than how I feel, but that's just to be expected, right? A range of feelings and opinions on this. And then we also had some additional comments in here as well. So I think that kind of shows, you know, I don't think that's a shocker. And as Scott responded earlier, that's not much of a surprise given the surveys that have been done previously. But there is pretty overwhelming consensus in terms of the red tier, especially among a majority of SEA members. So that's it for me. Do any of you have any questions? Am I allowed to take questions? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Since you presented this survey, if there's any questions from the board, quick questions, please feel free. If not, I'm sure we're gonna move on. As we move on, we'll be discussing this as well.
Yeah, I was gonna just piggyback and say that, Ted, that we have an agenda item that's related to COVID-19,
right,
distance learning. So,
but the nature of it, I thought
as well. Yep,
check, because I am president.
That's right. You do have the power.
All right, thank you, Gordon.
Thank you, guys.
All right, let's move on to trustees. Anybody like to jump in? Phil? Look like you were just gonna.
Sure. I attended the staff town hall. There are around 80 attendees. Some great questions. Our staff are empowered, and I appreciate not only in this town hall but all these meetings I've been to and stuff is that staff is fostering openness, and that's very helpful.
Thank you, Phil. Anybody else like to jump in?
Sure, I'll jump in. I attended the parent town hall yesterday, and I don't know how many folks were there, but it seemed well attended to me. Really appreciated seeing Lily doing what appeared to be live translating. Really awesome to see that happening. So people were getting instant simultaneous translation. And also, you know, good questions, good, thorough, concise presentation that also really, like, you know, honors everyone's time commitments. So really appreciating that staff are giving more and more evenings to these town halls. And also that I think parents, and maybe I'm only speaking for myself, but I feel like we are getting, you know, parents are getting a lot of information. And so it felt to me as though the town hall maybe didn't need to take as much time, because folks do, you know, we know the roadmap, we know where we're going, and it's great to have the opportunity to ask the questions. So a big thank you to all of the staff members. And I love the system we have where we have administrators monitoring the chat and giving, you know, organizing the questions, giving them to Scott. It's just really a good experience overall. And thank you for that.
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, anybody? Carolyn.
So I also attended the parent town hall, so I won't repeat what Amanda just said. And then also last week, the dual immersion leadership team, and really enjoyed the presentation by Natalie and the conversation. It seemed like it was really meaningful and a really great group of people. So I'm excited to be on that committee.
Thank you. Jen?
Hi, I like when you call on us, when you just go, you're up.
Well, I'm going by the squares. I guess our squares are different, so.
So recently, actually, I think just this week, I was in 2 meetings with our amazing Soquel team, one of them being the countywide arts planning team, where we had 2 of our Soquel teachers there. We had Diane, we had our music and art teacher represented there, and just great advocates for arts education. And this countywide plan, their input in it is just really, really needed. And it was great to be a part of that. And then yesterday afternoon, yeah, that was yesterday, more, COVID roundtables with administrators, and our phenomenal HR team was there as well. And just great, those are some of the meetings I've been with. It's just great to have our awesome Soquel team there representing, learning, and actively participating. So it's great.
All right, thank you. And that leaves me, well, let's see, an hour and a half ago, I was sworn in as trustee for this fine district. Otherwise, I had planned to listen to the town hall meetings. I wasn't able to, so I plan on listening to it. I started listening to the parents and was interrupted today, so I plan to listen to them. And thanks for putting them on too, Scott. I think it's very helpful for the staff, and as well as our parents and members of our community too.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'd just like to say big thanks to the administrators who come on voluntarily, and also big shout out to George, who set up the simultaneous translation, which really makes
it. Yeah, thanks, George.
Yeah, for a Spanish speaking community, much more fluid.
Okay, well, with that, we're going to move on to our public hearing regarding facility fees. And Michelle, I saw Amanda moving. It's like my brain fell. Sorry. All right, Michelle.
As a requirement for which will be a later agenda item for the presentation on a developer fee increase in developer fees, we have to hold a public hearing first to open it up to the public if they have any comments. This is every 2 years, the state reevaluates what can be charged for developer fees for both residential and commercial. And so this is just basically an every 2 year update, and we take a new resolution to the board. In my presentation later, you'll see a report by a firm that we contract with, and we have contracted with as far back as I can tell, for them to do the updated reports. And the public hearing, if anybody's got anything for me.
Okay, so I'm gonna open up the public hearing, but we're gonna wait about 30 seconds for if anybody wants to jump in because the virtual and stuff. All right, so I'm gonna open the public hearing right now.
I have nothing on email.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry. I thought we were waiting the 30 seconds. Nothing on text.
Well, I'm just gonna wait for a while. Just anybody needs to chime in, and if there's any delays.
I was just so excited about developer fees. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we all are. We all are.
And our 3-cent increase.
All right, so we hit our 30-second mark. Just double check. Anybody out there?
Nothing on text.
Nothing on email.
No one on Zoom.
Okay, well, I will close the public hearing. And let's move on to presentations. 8A presentation, board members on the California Boards CSBA Virtual Annual Conference. Okay, Scott.
Yeah, so I did not attend this year. Always look forward to attending that when it's an in-person event with the board. And I know our board has been very active and engaged in that annual conference. But we did have board members attend. So we'll open it up to hear how it went and what they learned.
All right. Who attended again virtually? Carolyn?
Yeah.
Did you, Amanda?
I did, but I'm still working on it. So I thought I'll just go first because it's going to be real short and sweet. So
you want to wait? You want to hear the ending, huh?
I'm going to chip away at it. So what's nice is they put all the pre-recorded sessions, into a special place where you can log in and watch them. So I've watched a few. I'm focusing on the equity strand, but I watched an interesting one about conducting board meetings virtually, and felt, confirmed that we're doing a lot right. So thank you, Ted and Scott and Linda in particular. So look forward to continuing to attend as time allows on weekends, and then hoping that you'll just, give me the grace to pop in with, if I learn something interesting, if I can just do it in a regular trustee report, because I'll just be doing it a little bit at a time. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to attend and continue towards, our own continuing education as board members. So it is meaningful as we are able to do things like this. Thank you.
So for virtual board meetings, that's kind of an interesting one. That's a whole new one too. And I've been trying to research it and involving the Brown Act and so on. But you think we're doing everything okay? If there's anything that needs to come up, you could always, let me know too.
Yeah, I'll take a look. I'll send you materials if there are any helpful materials, but it does seem like the general recommended best practices are practices that our district's already been doing. And again, kudos to George. Our tech journey on this has been really amazing, especially for a smaller district. And it's, I think it's very impressive the way we are as accessible as we're possibly able to be given all of the constraints. So good news on that front.
So are all the districts mainly using Zoom as a platform, or are there other ones out there that anybody else brought up that they may be using for meetings?
There are some others out there, and one challenge with watching, not attending a thing
right.
live, right, is I'm watching a pre-recorded presentation, that's got folks from maybe 3 different districts. So there's not kind of that give and take that you'd get with a normal audience feedback. So I do know there are a few out there, but I think Zoom, and someone else could speak up if you know this just generally from other districts. It sounds like Zoom is still the main host.
Okay, well, they came in with a great idea at the right time. Anybody else attended the conference like to chime in on anything that they learned? Fun facts, trivia? Phil, just hop in.
Yeah, hey, pop in for the X at the center. So first off, the sessions are still online until this Friday. And when you go online for the sessions, you can get the handout. So you don't maybe spend all that time on the session stuff, just download the handouts, throw them in the folder, and then you can look at them later. The delegate assembly part of what I did, we had COVID, of course, and we talked about vaccinations, ongoing funding, and safety. And all 3 of them were big issues. And vaccinations was huge. Who gets vaccinated? There's a climate change task force, and you're going to hear more about that. They're going to set up a spot on the CSBA website. So there'll be some best practices kind of stuff out there. They also did some governance, board governance changes. We got the legal update about what's going on in the courts. And then we got the legislative update of what's going on in Sacramento and in Washington. On sessions, I attended a session on community partnerships that Santa Rosa put on. They're, of course, deep into community partnerships now because they're still recovering. Oakland did one on climate change leadership, about how the district is taking a leadership role in the community. Hardy Partovi, a code.org guy, spoke. It was pretty interesting. He mentioned a thing about coding is actually just a kind of a grammar. It's a technology grammar. And syntax is big in coding, and it's also big in Excel formatting and stuff like that. So it is just another language. And then I attended a session on data culture, where this district took all their disparate, programs and created a data warehouse where each one would dump information into the data warehouse, and then district folks could query that warehouse, and it would include things from all the different platforms. So that's it.
I guess I'm up. So let's see. I also attended the code.org presentation. One of the interesting things about that was that I guess it's mostly focused on high school, but he said also that computer science and coding in elementary and middle school are associated with increased likelihood of attending college and just general the higher scores across the board, also and things like reading and math. So that was interesting. And there was Jason Dorsey, who presented about the different generations, talked about Gen Z, but also how the different generations sometimes clash and what we can do for to increase harmony between generations and the workplace and society in general. I attended 2 presentations that had to do with equity. One addressed specifically racial disproportionality in special education. And another one was about equitable hybrid and distance learning for English learners. And then there was a presentation led by some educational law attorneys with special emphasis on special education, in liability, and labor negotiations. That's it for me.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for our attendees? Okay. I guess none. Okay, well, we'll move on. Let's report on the 1920 developer fees collected. Michelle?
Yes, hello. It's a little confusing this year. Annually, I have to report on our developer fees that are collected from the prior year. By statute. Government Code 66001 requires that within 180 days of the end of the fiscal year, we do a public report out of fees collected and spent. Just happens to fall, it's going to fall in conjunction with another item I have, which is to increase the fees after the board takes action tonight. And so we collected just about $70,000 in developer fees and spent about $14,000 on facilities and about $39,000 upgrading the inside of the gym. We had plans to spend more of our money. As you can tell, we have $350,000 in our ending fund balance right now. And then COVID and all of our summer projects were put on hold. So, and my update to the board at the last board meeting regarding we're now getting back into looking at our facilities and how we can start that process again and get those projects up and running. So not for need for that money, just unable to spend it. So this is my annual report to the board. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Super exciting.
And developer fees are always fiscal year, right? Yeah, okay, collected.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're both on residential and commercial. And it's a 65% collected comes to the elementary district and 35% goes to the high school, which in our case would be Santa Cruz City Schools.
Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation. And let's move on to, unless we have any questions, let's move on our discussion regarding racial justice and educational equity. Scott.
Thank you, Ted. So our district has continued delving into this subject and striving to become a more and more equitable organization, especially in terms of racial equity. We've continued working on this in many formats, but most specifically with our task force, with our administrative council, and of course with this governance team. The most recent meeting of any of these groups was our administrative council back at the very beginning of December. We did have a task force meeting canceled. I guess one could say, ironically, maybe is the right word, that it was canceled to honor our members that celebrate Hanukkah. And shame on me for not noticing that when I scheduled the dates, but I think it was meaningful that it was brought to our attention, and meaningful that we're flexible enough to cancel that and reschedule it. And we will continue our work with that group at the next meeting and schedule an additional meeting to make up for it. There's so much work being done that will ultimately result in an equity plan for our district as we go through all this. One of the items that really stood out as we were working with Dr. Holt and Nicole is taking a look at the history of education, of public education in our country, with a very specific lens on equity. And without sharing the entire timeline, each of the three groups will go through this timeline. But it really stood out. It goes all the way back, this timeline goes all the way back to 1647. And so there's many benchmarks along the timeline, but I'd like to highlight just a few, maybe in the hopes of giving a little insight into the breadth of what each of these groups is covering and delving into with our leaders, Nicole and Dr. Holt. So back in 1647, the General Court of Massachusetts Bay Colony decreed that every town of 50 families should have an elementary school, and that every town of 100 families should have a Latin school. The goal was to ensure that Puritan children learn to read the Bible and receive basic information about their Calvinist religion. And so just an interesting first benchmark on the history of education in our country that we're looking into. I'll denote just a couple more. One that I'm sure most of us are familiar with a little bit more in our recent history was in 1954, and that was Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka. And so in that landmark case, the Supreme Court unanimously agreed that segregated schools are inherently unequal and must be abolished. Almost 45 years later in 1998, schools, especially in the North, were as segregated as ever, says this timeline. In 2020, the impact of race and poverty, as well as charter schools and school boundary policies, continue to impede progress towards the reality of the landmark decision of Brown versus the Board of Education. And then I thought I would just share one more. It's going through this timeline, it's startling sometimes to see how in such a recent history, we were still grappling with perhaps things we take for granted today. So in 1974, there was the Lau versus Nichols case, which was focused on bilingual education in public schools. And Chinese American students who were ELLs living in San Francisco filed the class action suit Lau versus Nichols. They claimed that since schools did not provide English language learners such as Chinese Americans with extra support to learn English, the schools were violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits educational discrimination on the basis of national origin. Essentially, the question at hand was whether school administrators meet their obligation to provide equal educational opportunities by treating all students the same, or whether they must offer special help for students learning English. For me, that really brings forth that image that we're all familiar with now of the students looking over the fence at the ball game and whether they should all have the same supports or whether they should have differentiated supports. So that's just three of the benchmarks along a history of education timeline that all three of our groups engaged in this racial equity work will look at. And I hope to provide some insight into the depth of the work that we're doing. And with that, I will turn it back over to Ted to see if there's any questions or comments from the board.
Yeah, thanks. That was interesting. Interesting learning. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay. Well, thank you, Scott. With
You're
that,
welcome. And there is no public comment on text right now.
Okay.
Not on
right.
Zoom either.
Sorry, nothing on email. I had to get a jacket. I was cold.
Yeah, it is getting a little cold, huh? Okay. No, I was just thinking about what you just presented. It's quite fascinating. Quite fascinating.
Yeah, I was gonna chime in. I agree, Ted. And if there are any, any of those articles that are presented to the task force, if there are any that you think would be beneficial for the whole board to read or to be included in future dockets, I know I'm open to that. If there's any particular topic that you think we should all read and discuss at a meeting, I'm fine with that. But I really appreciate all the work being put into the task force and by our administrative team. And thank you for the flexibility and appreciation for the task force members for raising the issue of rescheduling that last meeting.
Absolutely. And the timeline, for example, will be shared when the governance team meets with Nicole. So consider that just a little preview.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
If I can just add that
Yeah,
I feel
please.
like the work that we're doing on the task force for the dual language immersion program, it kind of fits with what you were saying about just providing those additional supports. And we know that the research shows that those types of programs are really helpful for our English language learners. So I think that really kind of fits in with the other work we're doing. So.
Thank you. Okay, let's, well, I guess we're okay to move on to our COVID and distant learning. Scott.
Yes, so thank you, Ted. Obviously, it's the topic that's driving so much of what we're doing this year. And I always try to strike a balance between painting the picture, but without regurgitating a lot of items that we've already gone in depth with. So I'll try to hit the main points. And so obviously our district, like all districts in our county, started the year in distance learning. After a summer of perhaps at one point looking like we would be able to start the year in hybrid. And so we have been in distance learning since the beginning of the school year. And, it just, even though we've said it many times, I think we can't say it enough that all of our staff has pitched in to make the school year work in the very best means possible, given the circumstances we're dealing with. That includes teachers that have remarkably become, have so much more of a handle and so much more expertise in delivering distance learning than when we started back in March. The learning curve has been fast and swift, and it's much appreciated. And then, of course, our support staff just stepping into so many roles that include supervising students and just doing whatever is necessary, whether it was in their original job description or not. And there's just been so much flexibility on the part of CSEA members, and that is genuinely appreciated. So as we, sit here in the purple tier in our county, looking at the data from the Thanksgiving break now, starting to settle into that, and then looking at the break coming up, and knowing that there could be some travel and gathering, and we may see some the impact of the data from that. We are no longer, as we had previously talked about, the possibility of coming back to hybrid in January. That is off the table, obviously, with our current situation. And so we are just looking at what we can do now to keep things as safe as possible. That includes surveillance testing, which I've talked about before, and continues to move forward through the COE. And I can tell you I myself have been tested twice now, and it's a very smooth process. And so we're very thankful for that. And also for some of the other testing opportunities around the county that have popped up, such as the one at Twin Lakes, Ramsey Park, and I know I'm forgetting another local one, but there are other opportunities. And so testing has become more and more readily available, which serves us well. In our district, we've had to address a few positive cases that have been, homebound from the exposure. And I would just like to say that our administrators have done a great job at the school sites of reporting properly. And we have established, George helped us establish an email address, COVID@suesd.org, very simple. And so that is the clearinghouse. That email address goes to our district nurse, Vicki Grisham, who's been invaluable in helping us process these situations, and also to our personnel coordinator, Sandy Figueroa, who has been remarkable in providing our site administrator support in dealing with it from a human resources perspective. And so, and that also goes to me. So that all three of us, Vicki and Sandy and myself, get those. And it's a one-stop shop so that we all are on the same page with our communication with our site administrators. We've really worked with, as we address those cases and make sure that any quarantining that has to be done is properly shared with any impacted staff member. We also try to look at it as a teachable moment, right? And to reiterate what close contact means. Close contact as defined by the CDPH is within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more. And so we kind of ask staff to think about that. Unless you're in a situation, for example, like in food services where your job requires it, try to kind of backwards engineer and don't let yourself be in the position of close contact, so that if somebody is tested positive, there is, through our contact tracing, there is a few, if any, members of our staff who are in close contact. And so deal with the cases, and we try to use them as teachable moments. And we, like I said, Vicki and Sandy's help on that have been absolutely remarkable. So another thing I'd like to talk about is our small student cohorts. Big credit to our site administrators. When we opened the door for this, they couldn't have jumped on quicker, and really worked with their teachers to identify students from backgrounds who, as we know, distance learning has challenges for all students, but we really worked to identify students who had more challenges than others. For example, language barriers, learning disabilities, and other situations that made distance learning more challenging. And we got those students on campus. We got up to a high of about 140 students. And if you did the math, that's about 7%. So really try to take about the 7% of our most vulnerable students and get them on campus, again, with those classified staff who were supervising them, stepping into roles they didn't necessarily originally sign up for, but did it so graciously because it was the right thing to do for kids. And so that way students are receiving their distance learning just as they would if they were from home through the computer from their teacher, but doing it in a safe, supported, structured environment on school grounds with supervision. And of course, all of the different aspects of our district kick in with that. For example, food services, providing meals for those students that are on campus. So that is something that is we're really proud of, and it's taken a lot of hands on deck to make sure that it happens. As an FYI, we are suspending those cohorts for the first 2 weeks after winter break in an abundance of caution. I guess you could call them, preemptive, knowing that there could be some traveling and some gathering, and we just want to be as safe as possible. All of these decisions are always a balance of two things, right? And that's getting students back on campus and student and staff safety, and always trying to find the sweet spot between those. And as much as it pained us, as we talked about this in our administrative team, it truly pains us to have 2 weeks without those cohorts on campus. We did think that in this balance of things that it was the right thing to do, and then to pick them back up after the Martin Luther King holiday in January. We continue to have a lot of collaboration with our two labor groups, CSEA and SEA, and we're very thankful for that. As I've mentioned previously, we have an MOU in place with CSEA. So I'm very appreciative to that and to Michelle's leadership with that group. We are meeting again with SEA to continue our discussions with them on a memorandum of understanding. As you could imagine, there are a lot of complexities when you're talking about a hybrid model, which is what these MOUs we're discussing is about, a hybrid model. A lot of complexities when you take a look at it from the teacher perspective. And so a lot to work through, but good discussions. And we will continue our work with them, all of us trying to come together to, again, strike a balance between getting students on campus and doing it safely. As has been mentioned, we've tried to continue to have lots of stakeholder communication, including the virtual town halls. which have proven to be a nice way to get information out and to field all questions, and just to make sure that anything anybody wants to ask, we either answer or find an answer to. And we're also developing a survey that'll go out before the end of the week. We sometimes chuckle when we say survey now because there's been so many surveys, and we realize, it can be a bit tiresome. We also, again, in an act of trying to find the right balance, we don't want to rely on old data. And data in this case might be 6 to 8 weeks old, but we think it's worth, the somewhat tedious exercise of filling out another survey for the reward of getting the most up-to-date data we can. So we'll be surveying our parent community again about hybrid instruction to get a sense of which families may want to stay in a full distance learning mode, even if we come back in a hybrid model, because that has impacts on how we plan and program our hybrid model. And so, as I said, we're working on that survey, trying to get it just right, and we'll have it out before the end of the week so that over the break, folks can have time to answer it, and then we can come back and give it a full analysis when we come back and use it to further plan our program. We have identified professional development and planning and collaboration for hybrid as a high priority. So even though hybrid is obviously by the nature of the word a combination of two things, of distance learning and in-person learning, when you think about it, as a whole other thing, it really is a whole other thing to try to balance that. And so we realize that our staff and our teachers need and deserve professional development and planning and collaboration to get ready for that. So we've adjusted our schedules both at the middle school, and we're working on an adjusted schedule at elementary. Those schedules are still SB 98 compliant. All of the instructional minutes that legislation requires students have will still be in place. It will just allow for a little bit more time for teachers to focus in on the next wave, which is hybrid. And Jessica has put together a remarkable day of professional development when we come back after the winter holiday on January 4th. And as always, she has developed that day, not in a vacuum, but with lots of input from our district leadership team, so that it really serves them and their needs in the area of professional development. And then during the first few weeks, we will have that adjusted schedule in elementary so that teachers have time in the afternoon to receive ongoing professional development and having planning and collaboration time. Facilities is a big part of this, and Michelle and her team, as she has mentioned, have been busy ensuring that we have everything we need at our disposal so that when we do come back in that hybrid model, we are safe. And that includes, amongst many other things, air purifiers for all of our classrooms. We have a big stack of them over in where you used to meet for board meetings in the boardroom. That's what they're full of right now, air purifiers, and they'll be distributed out to the sites in an effort to make sure that the air that is being shared when we do come back is as clean as possible. And all of the signage around campuses and everything is also being worked on and has been worked on. I suppose it would, even though there's not a lot in our control in this area, that a discussion of this sort would be lacking if we didn't mention the vaccine. I believe our county received just under 2,000 yesterday. So I guess the drop in the bucket, but it sure is a heck of a lot better than we were several months ago. And there's lots of discussion about where educators will come in line in that prioritization of receiving the vaccine. I can tell you that our superintendent's group is working with Dr. Csba to ensure that there is advocacy, at the legislative level to support and advocate for the idea that teachers and educators should come as soon in line on that prioritization list as possible. We realize, obviously, those on the front lines in the health industry and in patients and nursing facilities and those sorts of things are going to be first in line, understandably. But there should be a full recognition that I think we all realize what an important role education plays in our community. I think having it taken away for a little while has emphasized its importance even more in the broader community. And so we're hopeful that teachers and educators can be moved up that priority list for when the vaccine does become available. And we will continue to work on our hybrid plan. When I've previously presented in full transparency, I have gone on record as saying that I think it would be ideal to do that in the orange tier. And I've tried to say this in perhaps blunt but simplistic language. I think that ship has sailed. I think we are now looking at coming back in a hybrid model once we're solidly in the red tier. And that's for a variety of reasons, some of which include the fact that there is legislation on the docket in Assembly Bill 10 that would require that once a county is at least 2 weeks into the red tier, that they would be required to go back in a more full capacity, such as hybrid. And so that's only pending legislation right now. But I believe for a variety of reasons now, including that legislation, including what we're learning, from although there have been fits and starts and hits and misses with districts coming back across the state. Again, trying not to pretend to be, a medical expert here, but I think it's safe to say that if you could generalize some lessons learned, is that the virus is not spread readily from student to student or student to adult or child to adult, but that the real fear is adult to adult, and that the pros and cons of not having school, I think the general consensus is starting to be that getting students back in school in the red tier with all safety precautions in place is the direction we're heading. But of course, we'll continue to engage in discussion, such as the very meaningful data that SEA President Gordon Barrett presented tonight. Regardless of legislation, regardless of where the tide seems to be going, I'm really thankful to be able to hear the thoughts and feelings and fears and concerns from our educators and staff members, because that's really important. And when we go into a hybrid model, ultimately, we're going to want to be able to support everybody as much as possible. And in this data and these comments that we saw in the survey, they just really emphasize the fact that while we may need to go in that direction as soon as we have 2 weeks into the red tier, our staff is going to need a lot of support. And we'll do everything we can to support them with the hard and fast items like PPE, air purifiers, etc. But they're also going to need a lot of emotional support because there's a lot of fear and concern out there. And I would just say again, all of these items we try to do in the best balance we can get between the desire that everybody has to get kids back on campus, but try to keep staff and students safe while we're doing that. So I'll pause there to see if there's any questions or comments from the board.
I had a question. Oh,
Go ahead,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I had a question about the surveys for parents. What has been the response rate generally to those surveys?
For the most recent survey, we had a really good response rate of 500 families. And so even though we're a district of just under 1,800 right now, there are about 1,500 families. So about a third of our families responding. We would love to have more. We'll do everything we can to encourage it. And if any of you can help with that and spread the word, we'd appreciate that. Families that don't respond, we'll have to reach out to, and so that we can, that'll take a little bit of extra work in human resources, but we'll reach out to them to get their input as well.
Yes, I think it might be helpful maybe to have a date. Sometimes people don't see a date, then they just kind of say, oh, I'll do it later, and then they forget. Whereas if there's a date, and then the reminder that the date is approaching, so then that could be the little nudge. Perhaps that would be helpful, I'm not sure. And also highlighting how important the data is, that it doesn't take very long to complete and it's very valuable.
Thank you for that. We'll try to do a better job at that.
Anybody else have any comments or questions on this?
Speaking to the surveys, as someone who also has kids in another district, I will say I don't feel as though this district is sending out too many surveys. I think it really is, as you said, so very helpful to have up-to-date data as we shift from red to purple to this. I mean, people's situations are changing, so it's really important to get the best numbers possible. So I look forward to getting in, completing the survey and spreading the word as best I can. And thank you to you and the team. This is just very, very challenging. And in my home life, I certainly see the struggles and the lasting impact, of course, as many of us do, for our kids at home. So I do appreciate all of the efforts that we're all taking to get our kids back in school in the safest way possible.
So Amanda, you said that our district we're not doing enough surveys?
Oh, no, I just meant it's not, from where I sit, I don't think it's too many.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay, all right.
It's
okay,
just
thank you.
right. It's just right, Ted. Just
okay.
It's like the Goldilocks situation.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance. And I just want to say thank you, Scott, for the thorough presentation, and something you began your presentation with that has really struck me as an efficient and great system is that email address and funneling the concerns through that, and then how it's just very clear and transparent between the parties that need the information and the follow through. So that's just seems to be a really good system. So thank you. Glad we've got such a great team here.
Now you mentioned hybrid in a strong red.
Yeah, once we're solidly into red, meaning 2 weeks, essentially. And you could say 2 to 3 weeks because of it's hard to predict, when the announcement would be made. And I'm glad you kind of opened that door to just expand on that a little, if you don't mind, Ted, that one thing to keep in mind is this, it's all about balance, right? So another area to balance is the need to get students on campus on a hybrid model when the opportunity presents itself, but also the need to provide as much advance notice to families because of the impact on schedules. So when you think about transitioning tiers, as we have learned, it's funny, we talk about these tiers like they've been around forever, but in this relatively new system for the blueprint for the safer economy, the way the system works is that it's based on case rate, and that a county has to qualify at the lower case rate for the next tier for a couple of weeks, for 2 weeks before the public announcement of them moving to that tier is made. So if you think about, let's say our case rate was declining and it got into the qualification for the red tier, there'd still be 2 weeks where we're publicly in the purple tier while that's being monitored to see if that decline in case rate is staying steady. If it does, then the public announcement will be made, and we're talking about 2 weeks after that moving into a hybrid model. So between the 2 weeks of kind of maintaining the case rate to qualify for the red tier and the 2 weeks after the public announcement of going into it, you're talking about almost about a month. And during that, even that initial time where we qualify, but we haven't been publicly announced into the next tier, we could be communicating with families saying, hey, it's looking like we're moving in the right direction. And based on that, here's a potential date that we could be going into hybrid. And then after that public announcement, confirming that date to go into hybrid.
And you're still saying hybrid when we're 2 weeks in a strong red, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I would like to see the students get in the class, and the sooner the safest way of doing it. And I'm glad we're not looking at waiting for the orange. And that's me personally. I'm sure there's a lot of other going on too, But if, you know, if we could get the students into the classroom, you know, in a hybrid model when we're still in the red, I think that would be great. I mean, technically we could do it in the purple, but I'm not going to throw that in there. But you know, as soon as we can get them in there safely. And what do you need from the board to get that moving?
If I can backtrack for just a minute, just for clarity's sake. So we couldn't start a hybrid model in purple. This is a question that comes up a lot and it's come up in the town halls. If we were going to move into red and start a hybrid model in red, and then we were to backslide into purple, we are allowed to continue it at that point. So just for clarification on that. And then in terms of what we need from the board to implement a hybrid model once we are solidly into red, I would say is everything that you've been doing, is your support, your engagement in listening to the data and the survey data and the concerns expressed by our staff, recognizing that there's this balance. We're sitting here talking about moving into red, moving into a hybrid model when we're in red, and I'm sure all of us are balancing some of the data and the comments we saw from SEA's survey, and it's a real challenge to strike that balance. And the board has been very supportive, and also have been very, you have just been really good listeners about hearing all sides of this. It seems to me that the way to go wrong is to just kind of have an agenda and pick a side and go through it with blinders on. And this board has never done that on either side of the equation, on either just pushing to get students back on campus without taking into account all of the other factors that have to be considered, and also not just you know, taking only an uber cautious approach and you know, not wanting to have students back on campus and just looking for you know, a completely safe. There is no completely safe right now, right? And so I think that's the hard way to go, because you don't get to just plow forward one way or the other. But this board has done that, and I have felt totally supported in that. And so I guess to sum it up, just keep doing what you're doing, in my humble opinion. So
just to better understand the timeline of having students in school, let's say, and we're not going to say it, but Scott, starting right now, we want students in the classroom. What would be the timeline, and I mean, what would you have to do if it started from now?
I want to make sure I understand the hypothetical question.
It's a hypothetical. It's just, I'm just trying to understand a timeline of students, getting the students into the classroom. Yeah, Phil.
Well, we're at purple right now, so
I know
that would mean nothing happens.
No, but I'm saying it's just hypothetical, just to understand, you know, the timeline, because, you know, we're saying strong red for 2 weeks, correct? And then so when whoever declares whatever the, you know, strong red is, then we have to wait 2 weeks.
Well, strong red, maybe I didn't, let me clarify strong red. Solidly into red, meaning 2 weeks of having been publicly announced in the red tier. So, you know, the governor comes on and shows us his blueprint for a safer economy and where all the counties are shaking out in terms of the color. And, you know, on a given date, he comes out and says Santa Cruz County has now moved into the red tier. 2 weeks after that is what we're considering solidly into red.
Okay.
Does that help?
I guess there's not really, it doesn't sound like there is a really set timeline, really. No, okay. That's what I'm trying to understand here.
Well, and that's been really important to us, and I think it ties in very well with your question about what the board can, I'm adding the word continue to do to support our district and support our administrative team, is be science and data driven, right? And that at no time has this board put an arbitrary deadline to move in a direction that may not be safe. It's been data and science driven. That's the way our group of superintendents in the county have tried to move, looking at the tiers and how we're moving along in those tiers based on the case rate. So that's another way that the board, in my opinion, has supported our administrative team in the whole district.
Okay, thank you. Phil, yeah.
Are you done?
Well, I'm done. I was just going to ask Gordon if he had anything to say, but go ahead. Oh, am I done? Oh, you want me to be done?
I see Gordon has his hand raised, so I think he does have something.
Yeah, I saw him there. There you are. Hey, Gordon.
Hey guys. Yeah, thank you. Scott, I really appreciated your thoughtful presentation there about returning to hybrid. I really want to highlight a couple of your points. I thought you made a really good point about if and when we return to hybrid, I think staff will need a lot of support, and I think you were spot on there. Thank you for saying that. And I just also want to point out, we do have some of our neediest students back on campus. I taught in person today with my small cohort, and we've got many other cohorts going on at my school, at New Brighton, and I know in other places around the district. So I think we've done a really amazing job at getting some of the neediest students back on campus and making sure that they're with staff that is comfortable doing that, and that it's voluntary in the staffing. And I think that's a really excellent way to just make sure that we're kind of serving the needs of those neediest of our students. And I just want to reiterate one small point here, and that is that if and when we return in a hybrid in the red tier, you're right that staff is going to need a lot of support, because that according to the survey, that would mean 58% of SEA members or staff are in a situation that they describe as not at all comfortable for them. And so we have a large majority of our staff members would be in that hypothetical scenario, would be in a situation that they're not at all comfortable with. And I just think that that's important to acknowledge and just to kind of keep in mind, as we move forward with these conversations.
Well, if I could just chime in on that, I would say thank you, Gordon. And you present the perfect balance of these two things that I talk about, of serving students on campus and being safe. You yourself, walking that walk and teaching students, and also being mindful of our colleagues and how they're feeling about it, and that everybody feels different and has a different level of comfortability. And that really is symbolic of the balance we're all trying to strike together.
Scott, if there's anything you hear that we as board members can do to advocate for higher vaccine priority for educators, please do let us know.
Yes, and I will follow up on that. And of course, the more general answer is contact your legislators.
Correct. Bill.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. So I believe it was last week OSHA released new COVID guidelines. Is public health, CDC, and OSHA, are they kind of aligned, or are we going to have this moving goalpost thing? That's one question. The other one is PG&E is going to pull the power on us sometime soon. What happens to sync learning if the power goes out? And also if we're having a board meeting?
Yeah, so I'm going to take that first one about Cal OSHA. While I answer that, I'm going to try to tee it up for Jessica to take that PG&E question and readiness for that. So on the Cal OSHA question and the alignment, really very thoughtful question, because that is that alignment and occasionally lack thereof, you could say, is something that we deal with internally all the time. Our personnel coordinator, Sandy Figueroa, has been attending training and information sessions on the newer Cal OSHA requirements. And like almost anything else that comes out like that, there's some interpretation period to say, here's what we're thinking it says, and then kind of checking in with other groups, and occasionally, getting a legal opinion. And so if I could sum it down, that very broad question down into a singular issue. One came up as an interpretation on whether like the work site is the entire school site, or whether it's the area of where somebody who was exposed to the virus or tested positive interacted in a smaller part of the campus. And so we're working on getting clarification on that, because that would have a big impact on whether there was somebody who came onto campus, taught in their classroom, and maybe went to the break room, and that was the area they traveled in. And let's say that person got exposed at home and tested positive. Is that small area, is that the work site that was impacted, or is it, carte blanche, the entire campus? And so those are the kind of definitions that we're working on aligning those three sets of guidelines you mentioned. I think the good news, if I can say in a little bit of a general way, is that our County Office of Education put out guidelines on how to engage small groups of students and building from there safely. And it was very thorough and always erred, towards the cautious side. And so what we're finding is, by following those guidelines that the COE put forth, which obviously were done, with other organizations such as Public Health in mind, following those, we've always been able to be in compliance with everything, including the new Cal OSHA requirements. And so, kind of just starting and being as cautious as possible has kept us in compliance with those.
Can I follow up real quick?
Yeah.
So have we talked to our insurance carrier about all of this? And do they have another set of hurdles to jump through?
Yeah. Well, they will, of course, weigh in to help us stay, safe and compliant. And in fact, Sandy attended a first session with them today, and we expect that they'll be coming out with guidelines and, as Keenan often does, a training video we're hopeful for, so that we can distribute that to staff. And those have proven very effective in other areas such as bloodborne pathogens and many other areas, so that everybody has a baseline level of training. But Keenan hasn't gotten to that point yet, but we're hopeful they will.
Okay. All right, PG&E.
So this is a great question. We've been talking about this question since probably late September, knowing that PG&E typically does their onset of outages in October. So we've been doing some dialogue with the site administrators with regard to this potential issue for students who are doing virtual learning as the preponderance of their experience for education these days. And one of the things that we've talked about is the fact that we have a lot of now, fortunately, virtual curriculum and online curriculum through all of our math, science, English language arts, and not history yet, but also VAPA platforms. And so one of the things that we've done is we've talked to the site administrators about having the virtual opportunity and the non-virtual opportunity for students. And we had gone to last year a non-tech Wednesday profile, and all of our students have access to, first of all, non-technology project-based learning experiences, but also textbooks at home. And we have also done paper-based packets for some of our students, especially those students in those earlier grades. And so if we were to go to a PG&E outage, we would have a basic week's worth of lessons that would be available to students, probably not more than a week's worth availability of lessons to students, but we haven't had the experience of more than a week yet. And so those are kind of on the ready. They may not be like standard specific to the moment that the students are experiencing them, but they would be in the sequence of the grade level that the students are in. So we're working on that right now, and have been actually, like I said, since September. So we feel like we're almost ready. It's hard to always be ready because, you know, students' experience in school and their mastery of skills is always ongoing. And so you don't know where students are going to be in the moment that you have an outage, and how you're going to build that communication protocol to families who should have an outage. But we do feel like enough of the students are getting a paper profile or a non-virtual experience profile so that they could go through a day or two of a non-virtual experience to be successfully kind of keeping in line with school as we go forward. But we're still in ongoing conversations about how to improve that system. So, you know, if there's any recommendations the board should have or our community should have, we will definitely take them.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
I had one more question. I remember when Kristen Murphy gave her presentation, she mentioned that there were some students that she was really hoping to be able to bring back into the small cohort groups that just it wasn't possible to do. I was wondering if while we wait to get back into red, is it possible to increase the capacity of those small group cohorts, or is that not, or are we functioning at complete capacity right now?
Let's say the short answer is what you just said, that we've pretty much maxed out. We'll always keep trying to find new ways, but we've really kind of tapped everybody who may be able to supervise children, you know, understanding that our teachers are doing distance teaching. So we'll keep trying, but I think we are pretty close to full capacity.
All right, thank you. If there are no more questions, I guess I should ask if there's any comments that the public may have.
I have nothing on text.
And nothing on email.
None on Zoom.
Okay. If we are comfortable, we're done. We can move on to the next item, which is going to be discussion regarding board policy 6161. And that will be Jessica.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to present this revision and discussion and first reading to board policy 61.1, so selection and evaluation of instructional materials. And this really has a really timely essence because it does include the integration of the technology and virtual space for curriculum in the world that we're living in today. So this policy is updated to reflect a new law, Senate Bill 820, which revises the definition of technology-based materials to include the electronic equipment required to make use of those materials, making such equipment subject to the determination of sufficiency. And as you know, we work in determination of sufficiency on an annual basis with the Williams Compliance Act, and we have had technology-based instructional materials for a very long time, but especially now it's important that this CSBA recommended language be added to our board policy because we really are strongly influenced by our students' ability to access their curriculum virtually. So we're excited to have you read this for the first time and very happy to open the discussion.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board? Oh, there I am. Bill.
So on page 76 at the bottom, it talks about the hearing where we vote on the resolution. But what I saw is that, is it true then that the standards are no longer part of Ed Code?
Well, the standards are part of Ed Code. It's just that we actually have some embedded intricacies. So we have the English language development standards. We have lots of other influences with regard to the decisions that we make. We have societal factors. We have a number of additional items. So it's not that the standards aren't the significant influence, they're just not the only influence.
But it says here that it's SBE standards and no longer Ed Code or Common Core standards.
That is correct. And so the State Board of Education has actually embedded some additional standards, which include items like, is there some social justice influences? Are there some items related to racial equities? Are there other items that are just not related to the standards themselves, but additionally influenced?
Thank you. I'm just surprised that they're no longer legislated.
It's not, it doesn't mean that they're not, it just means that there's some additions too.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board? Okay. I think that concludes the first reading of this policy.
And there's no public comment.
Yeah.
On
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
All right, thank you. I know I like the line here saying the hearing shall be held on or before the end of the 8th week from the first day students attend school for that year. Who gets to mark that on the calendar? I like how it's worded.
Well, and that actually goes to a previous item on the board agenda tonight,
Right.
with regard to our board meetings, which will mean that we will bring this sufficiency of materials item earlier should we be adopting new curriculum.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I think we're safe to go on into the action.
There's no
I'm sorry.
tonight. It's just a discussion item tonight.
Right. Yeah, I'm just saying our next item now is an action item. Thank you. So 9A, we're going to consider adopting a resolution to increase the school facility fees. Michelle.
All right, I'm going to make this short and sweet for you guys because who doesn't, like I said, love developer fees. But first of all, because it is very late, and I just like to point out that we all have loved George's hair ever since the start of COVID. It is. There we
go.
Thank you.
All right, developer fees. Yes. So the district had a study done, and it's attached. They go out and look at a lot of variety of different things, mainly what's upcoming in potential construction and district boundaries, and the ability for us to need additional structures and kind of combine that all in there. As I said, the same company has been doing this study for us for many, many years. And so I think they just kind of build off of the last one that they did for us, which was in 2018. And so what this in essence is a resolution that will allow the district, if the board takes action tonight within 60 days, to increase our developer fees. And for this increase, it would be 3 cents to commercial and 19 cents per square foot to residential for any new construction done within our boundaries. I'd like to let the board know, just for administrative purposes, we at Soquel do not actually administer developer fees. The county office does that for us. So they go down there, they handle everything, make payments, and then the county handles it all through us, and then we receive our fees that way.
Okay.
Just kind of, it was just kind of a note. And that's pretty much it. And I had mentioned earlier that all developer fees, in total, developer fees are going from 61 cents to 66 cents for commercial and 379 to 408 for residential. And that we share our developer fees with Santa Cruz City Schools, a 35-65 split. So there's any questions from the board?
Any questions? Bill.
Very, very fast question. It said somewhere, and I can't find it now, that we shall review this every 2 years, but it doesn't say who. So is this staff sufficient?
The resolution, or are you talking about specifically, or the report itself?
Like I said, I can't remember where I read it in there, but I think it's a requirement that it shall be reviewed every 2 years. Who does that?
That would be Jack Schneider, the company that we contracted with. We in and of itself don't do it, but every 2 years, the state, I think what it is referring to is that the state sets the new standards every 2 years. It shall be reviewed. And if it's found that we hold standing to increase our fees, then I bring it to the board for a resolution. Yeah. And in this case, that they found standing for us, that we can take action. But if the board chooses not to increase the fees, that is acceptable as well. But I hope you don't.
Any other questions out there? Comments? Thank you. I mean, it was a good read. I like the history of it.
It was a long one.
Yeah, well, we could read page by page right now, but I don't think we need to do that. Any comments from the public before we go into a motion?
Nothing on email.
Sorry, nothing on text.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay. Well, then I'll call for a motion to approve the resolution to increase school facility fees.
I move.
I'll
Bill
second.
first. Amanda second. Okay. This is a resolution, so roll call.
Roll call. Trustee Rodriguez,
Aye.
Trustee Jackson Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Izan Gonzalez,
Aye.
Trustee Friedman,
Aye.
Trustee Donley.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to 9B. We're gonna consider approval of canceling the district's community forum for 2021. Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Ted. So this comes with some regret in having to use the term cancel, but I kind of wanted to honor the significance of the event to say that while we have many other forums, such as the town halls that we've discussed at length tonight, to get community input and community engagement, and nothing precludes us if the board chooses to go ahead and cancel the community forum as we know it. That doesn't preclude us from having other forums, to continue the engagement. And someday when the case rate and the tier allows for it, perhaps we could have a part of that be in person too. But traditionally, around the beginning of February is when we target for that community forum, which has become a very routine, regular annual event. And that's looking at that time of the year for a large gathering does not look realistic. And so my recommendation is to cancel it, the community forum per se, but with the realization that we'll continue to engage our public.
All right, thank you. Members, do you have anything to add or say or concerns? Okay, Phil, go ahead.
So, the item is ready the way it is, but let's hope that we're just postponing.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
Yeah, my thought on that, to be honest, was that it's become a regular event around the beginning of February. And so while, we can gather or discuss even on, this kind of setting, as much as we want, that it kind of honors that that's the time. I'll give you an analogy. I don't know if it helps. I just heard the other day they may cancel the Rose Bowl, and I don't think it's ever been canceled in its however many year history. And because the Rose Bowl happens at that time around New Year's, right? So that event is canceled. And someday in the history books, they'll look back 40 or 50 years and go, wow, we've always had a Rose Bowl, except,
Well, World War II, they didn't have the parade in World War II.
There you go.
And then in the Rose Bowl.
But that's a great point, that it kind of honors the significance.
I mean,
that event didn't happen. But that to me signifies that as a different event. It's not just regular community outreach. This is something that the board established prior to my tenure, and it's something real important that it happens on this routine basis, and it's not going to happen this year because of the situation that we're in. And someday some board will look back when they're on the 50th anniversary of the community forum, and they'll look back and go, oh yeah, that was the year of COVID.
Right. The thing about the forum is that the board is there, in a meeting with a quorum and calls to a meeting. At the town halls, we're just participants or we're listening. With the postponement of the February, we call it postponement instead of counseling. But what about, is there a need for a forum where the board comes together as a quorum? We call to a board meeting. What's the word, Phil? It's we call to a meet. We're in a meeting.
Right. So we can have workshops.
Yeah. Well, workshops. I'm just thinking of a forum, of whether it's necessary to have a forum with all members of the board to be present, or town hall meetings are sufficing and taking place of the forum, if I make sense.
Yeah. So
sorry.
No. So of course, full proponent of as much engagement as necessary. In my humble opinion, between the town halls that we've done, between representation of board members on varying task forces and committees, and between the nature of these board meetings that have shifted to the digital platform, and the opportunity for admittedly a different kind of engagement, but for community to have access to these meetings. I think, and again, in my opinion, there is no lack of the public's ability to let the board know their thoughts and opinions. And so I don't see that there's some other kind of format necessary, but I'm willing to organize something should the board wish.
No, it's just more of a question, comment, and my brain ticking. Phil.
So again, I'm an introvert, but I really looked forward to those meetings because we all got together. And I remember the last one, I was doing kitchen tours. It was great. But the benefit is the being in person with people. And so there's just no way to duplicate that doing Zoom.
No.
Right. That's true too, Phil. That's true.
I'm just going to hop in and say, yeah, I agree with that. I think it makes good sense to cancel it and look very positively forward towards doing it at the same time next year. So my goodness, that would be 2022, which sounds really far away. And then I would just ask if the administrators, if the cabinet or leadership team would, might consider putting out at some point when it's appropriate, sort of a state of the district, some kind of little newsletter or something, the types of things that you, Scott, and that the table leaders might have presented at the forum, just to give community members and parents like that snapshot view, because we are all so deeply focused on, you know, COVID, but to get a sense of some other exciting things to look forward to that people may be missing, such as the looking into the dual immersion and et cetera, et cetera. So that's my thought.
Absolutely. That's definitely something that we'll do. And like you said, in spite of all the challenges that are so heavily COVID related, I think we should all be proud of all the other work that the district has engaged in and not used COVID as an excuse. And that'll be something like that'll be a great opportunity to emphasize that.
Can I make a motion?
Please. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Well, is there a motion on the floor to cancel Soquel's Community Forum 2021?
Well, yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh, go. It's yours, Phil.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. And I assume there was nothing out there in the public?
Nothing on text.
Okay.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
All right, thanks for checking. Okay, let's move on to 9C, approval of California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly represented for subgroup 9A.
Yeah, so our subregion 9A has 3 representatives on the delegate assembly. You'll recognize one as our own Phil Rodriguez, but whose term ends in 2021 after, I'm sure he could explain it much more detail, but a bit of a roller coaster to get to that point. And so I'm looking forward to the next tenure, which would be from 2021 to 2023. CSBA is taking nominations for subregion 9A, and the board could consider making a nomination.
All right, is there a nomination on the floor? Or should I? Any questions I guess I should ask? And
so I'll just do a real quick one. You can feel comfortable having deja vu because we did this last year at this time. That election went into into a runoff. COVID happened and CSBA didn't know what to do. And so I continued being the DA person, went to the May meetings and all this stuff. They then had a runoff. I lost to the person I lost to, decided not to run for election as a board member. And so then vacated that. And then I got appointed to this spot, which is now up for election. Questions?
Oh, wow.
I will just say that the upside is that you're still representing us. So however it came out in the wash, it came out good.
Yeah, my question is, are you willing to do it again, to stay on?
Yeah, oh yeah. So here's what's been going on in the state. I don't know if you've heard this, but talking to other districts, there were a lot of folks who retired, but there were quite a few incumbents who were defeated. And so it's a new game out there now.
Okay.
Well, I'd be proud to nominate you if we're at that point.
No, second that nomination.
Okay, Amanda nominated first, Carolyn second the nomination. So with that, will the board approve the nomination of Phil Rodriguez to the Delegate Assembly for Region 9A? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. That was a new one. Okay. Let's move on to correspondence. Any correspondence? I did do complete 9C, right? Sometimes I get to the end and I just kind of, okay, I did it all. All right, completed. Okay, correspondence. Take it there's no correspondence because people aren't jumping up and down. Future agenda items to bring forward?
I have a question. Scott, do you need any help distributing meals over the break?
You know what? I think if she doesn't mind, I'll let Michelle handle that question.
Yeah, we actually we thought a lot about this and worked hard on it, and it just was not feasible. So we're doing our last delivery will be Friday, and that'll be for Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And then Kathy has provided information to all of our families about if they need additional supports on where they can go, and then we'll resume back up after the break.
All right, thank
you for asking though, Phil.
Now, is that a future agenda item? No, just kidding. All right, so let's move on to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Jen, I'll make the motion.
All right.
Second, Carolyn.
Carolyn seconds. All in favor?
Aye. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays,
Yeah,
everyone.
everybody have a really nice holiday and
Yeah.
have fun out there, whatever you do.
I sure miss seeing you all in person and having
Keep your head down.
having our little December meeting in person. So
Well, I'll see you at the beach, maybe walking the dogs.
that's right. I probably will see you at the beach.
Yeah, running into bed.
Who am I going to see at Trader Joe's? Who am I going to see at the beach? Yeah. Anyway, happy
Happy holidays. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Gordon, cheers.
Be well.